Welcome back, everyone, to another segment of Nurses Who Grow. I am Jodi, your 420 RN, cannabis nurse educator. And today, what I wanted to show you is we're going to be transplanting seedlings into a 1-gallon cloth pot. But before that, what I wanted to show you was the difference between a clone and a seedling. So a seedling, in one of my other segments, I had shown you that I had popped seeds with a little taproot and planted them in soil, and this is what they have become. And from here, we'll transplant them into a 1-gallon cloth pot with amended soil, lined with some perlite down on the bottom. And then after a few weeks, we'll transplant that into another bigger pot. But what I wanted to show you here were some clones. So clones are basically clippings from a mother plant or a plant that's larger and in its vegetative state. So what you would do is they would take a clipping very close to the bottom of the plant. And there's different ways to clone, and that's going to be another segment that we go over. But there's a lot of differences in the clone and a seedling. When a seedling grows, their very first embryonic leaves are down at the bottom, and eventually those will yellow off and fall off, or you pick them off. But a cutting or a clone never has that because there's only one set of those embryonic leaves, or cotyledons, I think they're called, and then they will never have them again. It's like having your first baby teeth. Once they fall out and the new ones grow in, you never have them again. But clones, when you have that mother plant in the vegetative state and you kind of use her for her genetics, it's usually you're using a mother plant because you're familiar with her genetics, you like her genetics, and you want to keep cloning her and repeating those genetics. So what you do is you take clippings and they turn into completely new plants from the clippings. So these clones right here are ones that Sandy had just received. She had built she had a tent put in one of the shops, and these are the clones. But I did notice that a couple of them, the soil was a little low, and you could see one of the little pods is kind of above the soil. So I will put a little bit of the amended soil right over that just to give it a little more area to root. So what I'm going to do, so this is amended soil over here. I've already added a little bit of pH'd water to it. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put on gloves, because once I add nutrients to a soil, it tends to irritate my hands if I'm working too much with it. I have psoriasis, a skin condition, and once it hits my hands, and it just irritates that. So I like to work with gloves. And the soil, and it's not soil, it's a medium. I always call it soil, but what it is it's ProMix, which is primarily peat and perlite, and this one has a little mycorrhizae, which is a fungi that helps with the rooting system. And then to this I also added some nutrients. But the pH'd water, you'll squeeze it and you'll see that some water squeezes out. It's not completely soaking wet, but it just, enough moisture in it to help moisten those roots. So I'm just going to use a little bit of this soil and put it around these clones, shake it, tap it down a little bit. Do it with this one too. A little bit around. And that'll bring the level to just below the level of the cup. I'm going to do it with all of them. These don't need it as much, but just to top them off. And then we will move on to transplanting the seedlings into the larger cup. So these seeds right here, these are, I had gotten some seeds from Irie Bliss from the Holy Sacrament Seed Bank. This one is called Mind Zetone, and it came from Dojo Seed Bank. And then, I'm sorry, no, scratch that. Mind Zetone came from Dark Horse Seed Bank. Then I have another one here from Dojo Seed Bank called Bruce's Ball Sack, which I thought was kind of funny. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to transplant Mind Zetone. So I have my cloth pot that I take some perlite. Now remember, perlite is for aeration and drainage. We want to make sure that these plants are well drained to help with that root system. We don't want them sitting in moisture. It causes mold and kills that root system. So the perlite's a little powdery. Sometimes you might even want to wear a mask while you're dealing with this. But it's about a 1/2 inch layer on the bottom of this 1 gallon cloth pot. And then I will take my amended medium here, which again is the Pro Mix, which is peat and perlite, and mycorrhizae, which is the fungi, as well as some organic nutrients that I amended the soil with. There's all sorts of different nutrient lines. I use a line called Nectar for the Gods. And I've just had some good luck with them, and I use them throughout all of the life cycle of the plants. So I only filled the medium about two-thirds full, because I want to leave enough space. I dig out enough space in the bottom to put the plant. So what I do, you need to very gently remove it from the pot. I can be a little aggressive with plants sometimes, so I have to remember to be very careful. So first you want to squeeze around the solo cup just to loosen the dirt a little bit. And then I'll put 2 fingers kind of surrounding the little stem of the plant, resting just on the top of the solo cup. While I'm over the cloth pot, I will tip it over because it gets a little messy at this point. So I will gently pull the solo cup off. It kind of reminds me of being at the beach when you're making a sand castle and you're pulling off the little bucket. That's kind of how it is here. And what you'll see, so this white on top is that layer of perlite that was at the bottom of the cup. But what I'm going to do is gently shake off some of that perlite, because I want you to see the root system here. See, look at all these little white roots there that are oh so beautiful. So those are what's going to connect with the medium that I'm about to put it in, and they're going to have more space to grow. What a healthy root system. So try not to make too much more of a mess. So again, so I put the plant down in the little divot that I made, and now I'm going to fill the rest around the plant with some of that medium that's moistened with pH'd water, pH to 6.2. And you don't want to really pack it down, because you want those roots to be able to, grow, and you don't want it too tight. You want them to have a little bit, but you also don't want it to be too loose. There's a happy medium there. All right. And then once you put a little more water on it, it'll tap down the soil a little bit more. So I'm not quite done yet, because now that I have it in this cloth pot, we still want to make sure we know what strain and its born on date. So this was Mind Zetone, and before I had written on the solo cup. But now, once I transfer them into their cloth pots, I have little plant labels. So at the top, I have the germination date. That's the date that the seed popped. And then I have the strain name, which is Mine Zetone. And then I have when I transplanted it into its next pot. I have the date, which is today, January 21st. And anytime I do anything to it, whether it be transplant it or top it, I will put a date on the marker. So what I do is I put this right around the neck of the stem, and now it's labeled. So it goes from that to this, and then I have a few over there in a 1-gallon pot. If you wanted to hand me one of those, I can show what this will potentially look like in just a few weeks. Here we go. And then from here, this one actually goes into a 5-gallon pot where it's going to get even bigger. People can graduate to 20-gallon pots, 50-gallon pots. Since I have an indoor grow, I stay at my 5-gallon pots. So once it hits its 5-gallon, it'll be there for a few weeks. Then it'll end up going to the flower tent, where it'll spend the rest of its flowering life until it's ready to be cut and harvested and cured. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us for another segment of Nurses Who Grow. You can find me on Instagram at Jodi420RN. I would also love it if you followed, and shared this page. You can also find me at greennetworkproviders.com, nurseswhogrow.com, and 420rn.com. Thanks again, everybody. And this is our way to decrease stigma, one leaf at a time.